is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please welcome my very special guest, Tracy Brinkmann. He is a podcast host of The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today. Please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. My background, oh my gosh, 50 plus years on this planet. I could fill up your whole show on just the background, but I'll give you the cliff notes and then we can dig in wherever we want to. I was lucky enough to be the son of an amazing man who was in the military for 23 years. So I got to grow up all over the United States and actually spent 6 years. My dad did two tours of duty over in Germany. So I got to meet a vast array of people. And I didn't have, some folks, they live in their little town and that's all they know about the world. I was lucky enough to see that vast experience of people out there. And then right out of high school, I went back and I joined the service, went back to Germany and got to experience it at a different level being an adult, right? However adult you are at 19, but and then came back to Southern California, started a little computer programming business. And that started, probably the first big dip in my roller coaster of life. I was doing well, had a little extra cash in the pocket, right at the boom, the .com boom, as well as the boom of the drug scene in Southern California. And I got hooked into the drug scene for a bit, and we're welcome to root around there if you like. I got to the point where the police literally 5-0 kicked in the door of my condo.
No.
Yeah. So that was wake up call number one for me. I was not there. And again, if you anywhere you want to dig around, just feel free. The real wake up call for me was I had a 3-month-old daughter when that happened. And again, luckily I wasn't there when they kicked in the door. Probably would have been different. My daughter wasn't there when they kicked in the door. But as I was growing up, my dad was always very family first focused. He was a very driven man, right? His career was always high on his priorities, but man, whenever something about the family came up, he was there. And I think that was starting, was barking in my mind as, I was looking at, okay, do I want to continue down this path? It's not just affecting my life anymore. Now I have this little bundle of joy. And so I made a quick left-hand turn and said, all right, I got to fix my mind. I got to fix my body. I got to clean up.
Yeah.
Can we cuss here? I don't want to.
Of course, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Got to get my shit together, right? And luckily, I had, like I said, the amazing parents and my brother from another mother. I'll call him brother. He just passed away a few years ago, but he was that guy. I could tell anything to, right? Good, bad, ugly. And he's like, dude, I get it. I get you, right? Luckily, I had that little support system there, started building myself back up. Ended up when I had the courage to put myself back out into the market, I landed a role at Coca-Cola, which started my corporate career. And I did Coca-Cola, Home Depot, David's Bridal, Victoria's Secret. I've covered the gamut when it comes to corporate America planning and marketing. But all the while I was taking in all this knowledge and like, oh, this is great information to have, it would always get to the point where I'm really not happy here, right? There was something missing.
Right.
And I was at Coca-Cola for 12 years and probably about halfway through it, I was introduced to mentoring. And I took, I had some mentors that really cut my learning curve down. And then a couple of years after that, I started mentoring, which introduced me to the realm of coaching. And this would have been in the late 90s. So that, coaching wasn't really cool like it is nowadays, right? Everyone wasn't doing it. But, in the corporate culture, they understood, hey, if you're going to get better, someone's got to help you with these things. And so that got me into coaching other people and really helping them identify what I call crystallize their passions. Sometimes people aren't happy doing what they're doing because they're not doing what they're really meant to do, right? And so if I can help them identify that passion and figure out a way to make a few bucks at it, maybe they can exit the cubicle and really start living the life they were meant to live, right?
Yeah.
So, started playing around with that. I actually stepped out of the big corporate America and stepped into small business. And that got me up here into Wisconsin and, started doing way more coaching and way more entrepreneurial things. And here we are, right?
Here
Here
you
we are
are.
just, yeah.
I love it. That's a great story. So let's talk about the dark horse side of things. So what kind of drugs were you doing that they came and kicked in your door?
Yeah, it was. I got into the speed scene.
Oh,
Methamphetamines was my drug of choice. And, for me, it was lucky enough. I was a bit of a control freak. And so that really kept me from getting into some of the more, I'll call them dangerous. I think they're all dangerous now.
well,
Right.
right. Yeah.
Having been there, I can speak my mind.
Yes.
But it kept me from trying anything, the acids and all that thing. Cocaine never did it for me. Pot was great if I had a toothache, but that was it. I
Yeah.
really liked being able to do things in speed in the early days. Was like, oh wow, I was doing computer programming. I could do a line and be up for like 3 days and get an entire project done that would have taken me weeks, but then it starts to take over your life,
Yeah.
and I've always and I'll thank my father for this. I've always been able to identify people and see their strengths, and that became a tactic when I was like, okay, well, my business has kind of fallen apart because I got into the drug scene.
Sure.
So now I got to find a new revenue stream. Well, how about I sell this stuff because I knew the people that were making it. I had that connection. And so I started identifying people I thought would be great solicitors, you might say. And so I began doing that little business. And after a couple of years of that, that's what got me on the radar screen of the local 5-0. And someone finally dimed me out. They got picked up for, I think they had like 10, I don't want to exaggerate. It was maybe 3 or 4 trash bags of pot.
Oh wow.
And I know where they got it from.
Now it's not a big deal because pot's pretty much legal everywhere.
Right. Not bad. We're talking, we're talking the early 90s here. So
Yeah.
it's a little different story.
Yeah.
But so he's like, well, he was one, and there was a rule back in, at least in the area I was at in Southern California, 3 for 1. Like if you could give them 3 good busts, you could pretty much, negotiate your freedom. And I was one of the folks that he turned in. Luckily for they dimed me out, right? But that's the game. That's the game, and I signed up for the game, right? I will never blame anyone else for my drug scene, right? I got into it. No one forced that stuff to go up my nose. That's it, And I think was probably that was the big ability for me to be able to walk away. Was I knew who was in control. It was me. The whole time, and luckily I was out on a 4-day party binge, partying, trying to pick up girls, just doing the whole guy thing back then.
Sure.
And so when I got back to the house that Sunday morning and I saw the door kicked in, it was like, wow, it was just like you see on TV, right?
Yeah.
Furniture was tossed over. There was clothes thrown everywhere. One of the things I think was the funniest was I'm a Fruity Pebble fan back then. Okay. There were Fruity Pebbles and instant potatoes poured out all over the kitchen as they were looking for product anywhere.
Wow.
There was none. They found nothing, thank God. Otherwise, the story would have ended completely different. But as I was starting to pick up the house and everything, they knock on the door as a follow-up and they introduce themselves and they say, Can I see your identification? Sure, no problem. It's in my briefcase right here. Now, I'm going to pause. Before I go on this 4-day party run, I go out with my buddy. We go to the shooting range.
Okay.
While we're at the shooting range, we're firing a couple of guns, having a great time.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I say, dude, I want to come back here maybe tomorrow or Saturday and shoot some more. He goes, well, I won't be able to make it. And I says, well, I didn't own guns, right? That was one of the rules. I don't own no weapons in my house.
Sure.
Can I borrow yours and just come back here? And then hit the range was right by his house. I'll just drop him off as I leave the range. All right. And you're smiling, so you know exactly where this is going.
Where this is going. Keep going.
So the officers say, can I see your ID? Sure, no problem. It's right here in my briefcase. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
You're just like trying to, be nice. And okay, comply with the officers. I open up the briefcase and I hear one guy who's off to my right yell, gun. rushes me, tackles me to the ground, handcuffs instantly on my
Oh,
hands, and I do not blame them. They don't know what they're
right.
stepping into. All of a sudden they see two weapons and I'm reaching into the briefcase where those are at.
Sure.
And so, they take me down to the police station and question me. It was a couple of hours that they questioned me. And the questions they were asking were spot on.
Okay.
They knew way more than they needed to know. And
Sure.
I'm like, I don't know that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that person. I've seen that person at the place where I shoot pool, all those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Right. Right. Right.
And finally, my friend comes in and, tells them those are his weapons. His story matches mine. Everything's good. They let me go. And as I was walking back home from the precinct, and it was probably a good 12-mile walk from where I
Oh,
lived
wow.
in the precinct, but it was a sunny California day, no big
Sure.
deal,
Like,
you're hanging out, having a good time. All these things are going through my head of how that could have taken a completely different direction. And it was
Sure.
along that walk, there was a lot of self-reflection going
I
on
bet.
that, I could have I could be on my way to prison. My daughter would have been one of those gals looking through
Yeah.
the glass at her dad, life-changing moments. What do you want to do? I finally get home and I pick up the phone and I called mom and dad and I says, I really need to have a chat with you. I don't want to have it over the phone. This is a face-to-face moment. And my mom could hear the tone of my voice. And, I went over there and just kind of spilled the beans,
Wow.
and let's be honest, right? If we have friends that are addicted to anything,
Sure.
porn, alcohol, drugs,
Right.
you kind of know.
Yeah.
I don't care how much they deny it, dodge the questions or whatever. If you're in their inner circle, you kind of know, even if
Yeah.
you deny it.
Yeah.
So, they knew, but, I always showed them the respect that they requested. Like, never bring it to my home.
Right.
And I never did, thank goodness. And so when I poured my heart out, it was like one of those, well, we kind of knew, but didn't
Yeah.
know kind of thing.
Sure.
And, it was like, Mom, I need someone to keep an eye on my daughter
Yeah.
while I recover. I didn't go to rehab. I did it cold turkey. I just turned the faucet off. And luckily, when it comes to speed, it was just all about letting my body heal and sleeping for about 7 days, getting up to do
Yeah.
biological things. But I thank the heavens above, for that 3-person support system that, allowed me to really get my life back together again.
Sure. Wow, that's a lot. So I mean, you really have overcome some things. You've overcome some things, and now you're thriving. You have a podcast, and you are able to speak about this, and people, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. I mean, like I said before we started recording, I've got drugs in my past.
Yeah.
Like you said, you are in control, and that was one
Yeah.
thing. I did a lot of cocaine back in the day. I did acid, shrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Still love my weed every once in a while, but
Hey, right?
but even that, it's like I have to be clear mind. I have to have a clear mind, so it's not as fun anymore because it just makes me
Sure.
fuzzy. But
Yeah.
I feel like when you overcome a lot of those things and you've got caught up in that lifestyle, you overcome it. It kind of like it helps you grow in a lot of ways, and really it helps you become a much better person.
If you, I think, you're absolutely right. Spot on right there. But I think one of the things that really helps you turn that corner is facing, turning around and staring that demon, that darkness, the abyss, whatever you want to call it, dead in the face and
Yeah.
saying, I kicked your ass.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going back, because I know as after I got, up out of bed and I was, starting to get up and moving again, I still had these computer skills, but
Sure.
I didn't feel worthy. Right. Because I was a recovering,
Sure.
narcotics user. Right. I was a speed freak. I was holding on to the labels. Right. To
Yeah.
link it to what we're,
See?
you're talking. I was
There you
holding
go.
on to the label internally. And to overcome that, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to work in a warehouse. I'm going to work on the dock. I'm going to go do day labor, whatever it takes
Yeah.
to build up my confidence and feel good about who I am. Because I was imagining, here, let me go out and pitch my services to Mr. Business Owner. Mr. Business Owner says, didn't I just see you snorting lines off that girl's belly at the bar down the street here not too long ago, right? And you'd be like, oh no, that wasn't me.
Yeah,
That
right.
was my twin brother.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, but
yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So I started taking those. All right, here's what I can do. I can do this and I can do that,
Yeah,
and that built my confidence back up and say, okay, now I'm going to step back out into the world. And I stepped back out and applying for a corporate job. And, that led to Coca-Cola, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, it wasn't other people labeling me. Like I said, I had an amazing
right.
support group. My brother never once labeled me. Actually, his wife was saying, why do you still want to hang out with that guy? Look at him. He's a speed freak. She goes,
Sure.
you don't know the real Tracy. That is not Tracy, right? And if I hadn't had those people, who knows, right?
That's a
Um,
blessing. That's a
yeah,
blessing.
absolutely. And I thank God for him every day. And I try to be that person for anybody I can
Sure.
because of that gratitude.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's actually, speaking of that, let's talk about, I like this question here. How can someone find their voice? And like I had mentioned before we started recording, like for me, it's been an interesting journey.
Hmm.
Just some of the stuff, some of my past, like I'm a survivor of human trafficking. That's
Mm,
to forgive myself and actually now be speaking about that. That was I struggled with that for many, many, many years. And now I'm just like, you know what? That's part of my past, and that I've gone through a lot. I mean, I've grown a lot since then, and I
hmm.
have to forgive myself, and I have to allow other people to connect with me because of that, because of my past, so that gives
Absolutely.
them the courage to speak their truth too. So
Yeah.
I want to hear from your perspective. How can someone find their voice?
I think one of the first things is I kind of alluded to earlier is, well, you said it, forgive yourself, right? And I don't know if it's a forgive yourself thing. For me, it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about looking back, like I said earlier, into the abyss that was that dark, I call it my dark time, right?
Sure.
And said, okay, I did that. I'm going to own it. I did it. What can I learn from it?
Yes. Mhm.
Right? And if I can learn 2 or 3 lessons, good things, like I said, I learned how to read people a little bit better from that experience. Not a great way to learn it, but
No.
I did,
Yeah.
right? But I also learned that no matter how bad it got for me, I was able to identify it and make the change. So I turned around and I stared that monster right in the eye and said, okay, first off, I'm going to learn from you,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I whooped your ass and
Yeah.
I can keep moving forward, which really becomes beneficial when you face your next demon. There's always going to be a demon tomorrow, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
may
for
be a
sure.
little demon, it may be a big demon, whatever it is. The banking system could fail. All right. Well, that's not your demon, but it's a demon you're going to have to face, right?
Yeah.
But to get back to your original question of how people can find their voice, I think it comes out of accepting, hey, I did that. What can I learn? And take those learnings and share them with other folks.
Yes.
It's like, dude, I, here's a great lesson, and I'll wrap it up in this one right here, so I'm not babbling too much.
It's
With my
okay.
first, with my marriage, I had 2 amazing children, and the lady that I married during this time, no longer married now because we went different. Well, anyway,
Different ways.
there's a story there if
Oh,
you
I'm
want to.
sure.
We can go there. But anyway, she was a part of that drug scene, and
Okay.
we were separated when 50 knocked on my door. But now we have children, and I told her, I looked her dead in the eye one time. I says, "Here's the thing. I'm not going to be like my parents, and my parents were." Don't be a smoker as they're smoking
Sure.
cigarettes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to tell my kids, don't do drugs. And when I think they're old enough to understand my experience, I'm going to start telling them
Sure.
the God's honest truth. So they won't be, well, what do you mean don't do drugs, Dad? Pot's this, speeds that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can I can tell them, look, I've been on that side of the street. And
Sure.
yeah, it's all fun and exciting the first week.
Yeah.
Maybe
It gets kind of ugly after that.
yeah, and she was like, oh, but she'll think less of me, and that identifies her thinking right there,
Right.
right? And
Right.
I'm like, that's fine. If they think less of me because I'm teaching them a life lesson that's going to pay dividends for the rest of their life, so be it,
Yeah.
right? That And I did. I was always honest with my kids. I laid a lot of things out there. Now, did I tell them every single? No, I didn't tell them everything.
Right.
But if they ever asked a question,
Sure.
I like, here it is right here. The good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah, it was fun. No, it was stupid. Blah, 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 all those things. And I think it paid off well. They've toyed. I know they have,
Sure.
I've seen it, they've admitted some of it. But they have both come out from, I think pretty well on the backside of it as a result. So
Sure.
there was that mystery of, that mystique of alcohol and drugs wasn't there.
Right.
Because, my dad already told me all about that.
Yeah. And I think that's good. I think that's a great way to handle that as a parent. My mom, I don't think she was necessarily honest with me at like when I was in my early 20s, but now she's a lot more open.
Yeah. And they're from a different society, right? If you
Yeah.
think about society and drugs and alcohol and even sex back then was like, oh, it's a secret. It's dirty,
Yeah.
But I think if folks can stare into that abyss and see the lessons learned, they're going to find this passion to share it with those that are either going through it, have been through it, or at risk of stepping in that pile of crap.
Yeah. It's a pile of crap, that's for sure.
Right.
I actually had to like kind of step away from some people that I was hanging out with last year because they were just all about the party.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be around this. Like there's no room in my life for it. But let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about more of like the business side of things and how you are helping entrepreneurs and I like this question. Why should entrepreneurs stop trading hours for money?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's breaking out of that stigma I think we've all grown up with, that you get that first job and they pay you X dollars an hour to work it, and it just kind of tends to follow you all the way through your career. I think entrepreneurs have the ability to take their knowledge and sell it multiple times, package it once and sell it multiple times. If we look at, let's say, someone who's a business coach like myself, right?
Sure.
Or even a mindset, any kind of coach, a lot of times what they're doing is they're spending their time finding a client, onboarding that client, and then teaching the client whatever process or, roadmap that they have for them to reach their success, whatever that success looks like.
Yeah.
I think what they can do is they can turn around and take that same process, right, and package it into, let's call it a digital course, a book, whatever they want to call it. Let's stick with digital course because, we're in the whole new millennium now, right?
Yeah.
They could put it out as a digital course, package it once, spend the effort to do it once, and then sell it over and over and over again. And then now what they can do is onboard clients at a premium level.
Sure.
So because they've already gone through your course, you don't have to reteach them all this stuff that you just laid out.
Right.
Now you're finding someone that's already invested in themselves.
Right.
And they're raising their hands and saying, dude, I need more of you, whatever you means to them. And you're like, sure, no problem. And instead of charging them $100 an hour, now you can charge $400 an hour because you're getting them that next level of results. So now, go ahead.
So you help coach, so your clients, you help coach them through that whole process?
Oh yeah. That's all about identifying what is they're passionate about, so they could turn around and monetize that. And then, do that through, you could do it through podcasting, much like you're doing here. Yeah. And then that's on both sides of the mic, right?
Yeah.
So not everyone wants to be a podcast host. They're like, I don't, no, thank you. Right. And that's cool. Yeah. But what about being a podcast guest? That's a way to get your message out there and share your value with people. And then there's also things like pop-up podcasts that I think over time are going to replace webinars. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the digital courses. I got your attention now, didn't I?
I've never heard of that before. So what's a pop-up podcast?
So, okay, well, you know what a webinar is, right? Someone says, hey, I'm going to teach this master class. It's going to be Wednesday at 5 p.m., whatever it is. Right. Come sign up and spend 2 hours with me. I'm going to give you all this value. And at the end, towards the end of it, they make an offer, right? Hey, you want to learn more from Tracy? Or you want to learn more from Deanna?
Sure.
Here's my product. Come sign up.
Right.
Well, a pop-up here's the downside of webinars, right? We're busy. Do
Yeah.
we have 2 hours at the time that you assign that webinar? Not usually not.
No.
Well, if you take up that's one of the cool things about podcasts is I can consume a podcast on my own time.
Right.
I can do it while I'm working out. I can do whatever it is. I can multitask, right? I could be walking the dog.
Yeah.
And I could be consuming it at partial, like, hey, I can listen to half of the label free podcast. And now I'm at a point where, okay, I have to put it down. I could pick it right back up and pick right up where I left off.
Yeah.
Great thing about podcasts. So let's take those two things and mash them together, and let's create what's called a pop-up podcast. And you announce to folks, hey, I'm going to be delivering all this amazing value to you in this podcast. The podcast is going to be available from next Monday through next Sunday.
Okay.
And then I'm tearing it all down. And you're delivering the same thing you would in a webinar, but you're just dicing it up.
Right.
You're just dicing it up in nice little consumable chunks. Say, here's a half hour of this, half hour of that, and half hour of this. And the very last one, well, maybe the one before the last one is, hey, if you've enjoyed this and gotten value out of it and you'd like to learn more, here's my offer. Give them the pitch. And then the last one is kind of taking them through. Hey, we talked about this, we talked about this, you had this, all the value, and is the repitch. And then you remind them, this is all coming down on X date. And now anyone with that takes that webinar mentality, it says, hey, it's going to be available all week. You can pick it up and listen to it, set it down, and get through the content. At your leisure. I know you're a busy person, so it's this new concept of things, and then you just take it down. And then,
I love that. That's
it's cool.
That'll be neat to see how that plays out. I mean, I'm just loving this whole space. I mean, I'm having so much fun, and it's pretty neat to see how it's like just growing.
Yeah, it's blowing up
big time. So we're in a good spot.
Yeah, I started podcasting in 2009.
Oh wow!
And it was the landscape was completely different back then, and and it's really changed just over the last year with the whole COVID thing hitting us all and bringing us indoors. This is another way to connect.
Yeah, I started my podcast like a year and a half ago.
Nice.
So I got real serious.
Yeah.
Last year from COVID. And I just switched to Zoom because I was doing it in person. My recordings in person. And now I switched to Zoom and I just kept going. So I probably released almost an episode a week last year.
Nice.
Pretty good.
That's awesome.
Good. Yeah. Last week I released 3 episodes. So I'm on a roll.
You're on a roll. I started off when I relaunched the Dark Horse Entrepreneur last year. It was almost when I launched it, I'll be honest, it was kind of self-serving. I'm like, what's the best way for me to be able to go out there and pick the minds of some amazing entrepreneurs?
Sure.
And deliver some value at the same time, right? I'm joking when I'm a little tongue in cheek when I say self-serving, but certainly, delivering the value. And so I was weekly, interviewing folks like yourself and other folks that have gone way before us on their entrepreneurial journey and getting an hour of their time, sometimes a couple hours of their time. And these are the people that would charge $5,000 or more to give you the lessons that I'm just like asking them questions and they're just dropping value bombs. And it started taking off. And then I started dropping in solo episodes, and I would just kind of pick up on where they left off and drop, hey, here's what I think on top of that. You got all that knowledge. Wow. Here's my brain dump at the same time. And I was noticing that the listens were trending more on my solo episodes. So I flipped the script a bit and I said, okay, I'm going to keep doing the interviews because I really enjoy that. And I think it delivers a lot of value that people will get, even if they don't get it on the day that it drops. Maybe they'll listen to it 6 months later because they're ready to hear it now. And then I started my solo episodes and I turned them into dailies and just shortened them. So for instance, I had a Colonel Bass, retired Colonel United States Air Force Colonel Bass. She was on and talking about how she taught all these people this amazing skill of how to write powerfully. Wow. What a great topic, right? And so there was this great interview. And so the rest of the week, each day of the week, I would drop a little nugget of, here's how to write for better conversions. Here's how to write to get people's attention. Here's how to set up your environment so that your creativity can flow through you better.
Right.
Each one, so it was just kind of that concept of, hey, I'm going to take that interview idea and what they talk about, and I'm just going to completely build on it from there.
Right.
And people are they're eating it up, going, oh my God, this is awesome.
That's great. What a great process for you. With that being said, Tracy, can you plug where, if anybody wanted to reach out to you and possibly get a consultation with you, can you let them know where they can find you?
Absolutely. The best place to send them would be to the website, which is darkhorseschooling.com. And you'll see across the top there, all the socials are there. I'm pretty active on Facebook and Instagram. And then there's a coaching tab. You get down there, you can type me a message and I'll respond to it. And they're welcome to connect with me on Facebook and DM me. I connect with everybody on Facebook nowadays. It seems to be a second live stream now.
Social media is not going anywhere.
Not anytime soon, right?
When people, I got a lot of flack for, I mean, my family won't connect with me on there because they're like, you're like a local celebrity. I'm like, get out of here. They just aren't comfortable with it because I'm very active. And like you said, I'll connect with everybody. Like, because that's the world we live in. And it's just getting even more and more intense. Like you need to like connect with everybody on everything, how else are you going to build your network?
That's right.
You don't know who that connection can introduce you to, the next day. So
absolutely.
Well, I'm here for it. I'm not going anywhere.
Sign me up.
I'm in it.
That's it.
Well, Tracy, I will definitely put all the links to how people can reach out to you in the body of the episode, in the description of the episode. But I want to thank you very much for your time today. It was great having you as a guest. I love your story. I can definitely relate to it. And now you're thriving, so that's awesome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast, to live your best life. You must live label free. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I will be back soon with more dynamic guests.